Thank you so much for those introductions. Good afternoon, folks. Yeah, graveyard shift. I can sense that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, please. Thank you so much. I'll take a leaf out of your book. So, I've been a big fan and student of customer experience and done quite a few things over the past 25 years and continue to do that as well. But one thing that I realized in the last 20 months of the pandemic has been that incessant focus on two hitherto, out there but still not visible aspects of retail. One happens to be employee experience and the other supply chain processes. And not surprisingly, both these aspects impact customer experience a lot. Right? And that's why I'm so excited to be here. And I have a very accomplished panel out here. And I call them accomplished because I know almost all of them for a long time now. They've been gurus in their areas. And they also represent multiple sectors within retail. Okay? We have Anil, who has had experience in large companies, with QSRs, and now with a hypermarket chain. We have Ranjan, we have Anurag, we have Prashant, who who come from the fashion and apparel part of it. We have Guru, who represents Carrot Lane from a jewelry perspective, which is now a Titan company. Sorry, did I miss out anyone? Sorry, Manoj from the House of Anita Dongre, again, fashion and apparel, right? So we've got a mix of folks out here from various sectors. And what we're going to discuss on for the next 30 minutes, or when this monitor asks me to shut up, is about supply chain, right? Perhaps not the most exciting of aspects of retail, let's say about 4 or 5 years back, but today it's pretty much out there under focus. Right? And now, to kickstart it, before I get into it, my only request to you is that let's make this a little more interactive, right? So we will not have that typical end of the session kind of questions. If any one of you has a question or you strongly disagree with some point that is being aired out here, please stand up. I'll ensure that the mic reaches you and you can ask your questions. Fair enough? Can I have your support? Excellent. So let's warm it up a little bit now. So how many of you have had an excellent fulfillment experience? How many of you have had an excellent fulfillment experience? Don't worry, I will not get into the details of which brand and why and what so forth. But in general, how many of you have had an excellent experience? I've had. You've had, yes. Who else? Okay, I see a couple of, okay, I'll be coming back to you. Now, who's got a very depressingly sad experience on the fulfillment side? He's got 2 hands up. Okay, now, okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you've got both the good and the bad as well. No one else has had a depressing last mile fulfillment experience? That's very nice to hear. And you must be all, heaving a sigh of relief, right? Okay. So now coming to this, and Ranjan, I want you to kick this off. Supply chain, customer experience. Typically, it happens to be a concept that's talked about and then left at that, right? But how important, hand on heart, how important do you think supply chain is to making sure that a person who is going to, let's say, buy from bestseller, the supply chain part of it actually determines the customer experience for that person?
Thanks, Iju. I think one of the key things to retain a customer and to make him keep coming back and buying from us is the last mile, is the post-purchase experience. We can do beautifully all the discovery, all the pre-purchase experiences, they're all doable, but the post-purchase experience is so much defragmented, and there are so many players who actually contribute to that. That makes it more complex. And if you are able to achieve that piece, I think you've retained the customer for life.
So is that only you as the chief of supply chain who believes in it, or does the entire board believe in it?
Thankfully, yes, the entire board believes in it. Had it not been the case, we would have not been in the business so far.
Coming to you, Anil, you had experience of QSRs at one point in time, then you moved on to a largely hypermarket scenario, rolling out big malls. How important is supply chain for you from a customer experience perspective?
I think that's one element which can't be missed in a customer experience point of view. Supply chain is the key, but as we speak and as it's overcome right now, there are many elements which are running around customer experience. So whenever you talk about customer experience, it's always, marketing is marketing doing a good job, is the customer coming in, and so on and so forth. Now people have started realizing that how key is supply chain in this whole circle of customer experience. So having said that, I don't see there's an alternative to replace supply chain at any point of time in terms of customer experience.
So you are the CIO at Lulu. So how often do you have a conversation with the chief supply chain officer of your organization?
Oh, that's a daily affair. That's a daily affair because somewhere, like we were having a chat some time back, the supply chain and IT has become one. That's a very blurred line between supply chain and IT. While you talk about, previously it was more operational in nature, the four walls as we are talking about. Now it's not four walls, it's the last mile which makes a lot of difference. Four walls is now taken care by the IT and so on and so forth. So that's the level of discussion we go in.
And Guru, so CaratLane, was it a digital native brand or how was it? Can you just give us a small background on that? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we were born digital company. 2008 is when we started, back when Flipkart was trying to sell books online. We decided to sell diamonds online. So that's the kind of the widest spectrum that you can imagine at that point in time. So from that point on, around 2012, we realized that need to be a brand touch point, started opening physical showrooms as well. And today, majority of our business comes from the physical showroom, but we have done it as an omni-channel opportunity so that it just, the line merges. And as everybody was talking about, the online and offline merge happens spectacularly well in our organization. So it's about 70 to 80% is today on retail, physical showrooms, and about 20 to 30% is on online side.
Okay. And from a supply chain perspective, because you're a digital first company, obviously it's a moniker for operations that you have. So how important was it, and from a delivering customer experience perspective?
So it's like very important for us because people buy it for gifting. About 60% of our operations or the orders for gifting purpose. So there is a lot of emotion attached to every particular order. It's not a utility or a commodity that people use. It's more for a relationship and trust building and so on. So if we spoil that particular experience, then we are actually damaging the brand reputation for two people, the gifter as well as the recipient. So it's very critical for us. We go even to the extent of delivering by sending somebody on a flight to reach the right, give the product at the right time if something gets screwed up in the supply chain. So we just don't leave it only to the last mile partners. Sometimes if the dates get slipped, we ensure that we definitely reach the product to the customer.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very paramount.
And Anurag, Biba as a brand has been typically started off as a shop-in-shop kind of a brand, if I'm not mistaken, and then it's taken on the form of an independent brand in itself. So customer experience as a concept would have come a little late in your journey as well. And so supply chain, customer experience, do they match up in Biba?
Yes, yes, definitely. Just to give you a background, we started our digital journey in 2014, right? I think maybe in ethnic brand, we were the first to introduce e-commerce. And while identifying the right platforms for our digital journey, we also evaluated the supply chain part of journey also. The problem was initially for first 2-3 years, it was really a pain to us, right? Customers were experiencing late deliveries because we were not having that type of experience to ensure that your customers are getting the timely delivery. But yes, after 3 years, we kept on improving. We identified the right partners, SLAs, so and so forth. We tied those, and as of now, we almost deliver in 24 hours. And we have a good logistic partners to cater to based on the pin codes. But yes, Couple of years back, we started omni-channel also, then the same thing happened once again. We have to reinvent the wheels, and last, I think 1 year, we have a smooth journey. But yes, still I feel that reverse logistic is a pain area as far as Biba is concerned.
No, good you brought that up because I would like to spend some time on reverse logistics at one point in time. Coming to you, Anurag, from a own store perspective, do you see any difference between the way customer experience is delivered there vis-a-vis, let's say, if you are part of, let's say, Shopper Stop? Do you differentiate these two?
Yes, it is very much. Because, we give personalized attentions to the customers because we have a good customer analytics base. And we actually identify our regular customers, give them, proper treatment. Now, we have launched luxury sections in flagship stores also to ensure that our customers get good and rich experience. We, identify their purchase history also, suggest them, what is required, what is their liking and disliking. But definitely, yes, to ensure that we compensate their customer experience, we, in fact, in person deliver to their homes also. So as far as our regular customers are concerned, I think they are very satisfied with us.
Okay.
But yes, again, challenges are always there.
Okay. And coming to you, Prashant, you, like the rest of everybody out here, except for the exception of perhaps Anil, you were part of the discretionary category when, the entire pandemic was at its high. So how has supply chain evolved in your organization over the past 20 months? Yeah.
So comparatively, we are a very new company in this field as far as these giants are sitting here. During pandemic, we had made a transition from one company to another company, and it was a very difficult for us to complete all the things in a one place, basically. And whenever we start entire transition or we end the entire transition, we are not yet ready with our website also. So we have started or opted a different way of handling it. We have SMS people, email people or WhatsApp people, our catalogs, and basically who are our customers, and trying to give them a personalized experience, and we are trying to deliver it. So that was one part of it. Now when we go live with the website, then again when we are talking about the last mile of the delivery part of it, so we faced many issues out of it, and still we are learning and we are making it more and more accurate.
Okay, so hearing all this talk by the gentleman on stage in terms of how crucial supply chain is and how strategic it is, Atul, may I talk or you agree with what they're saying?
Yeah, no, Hello.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think, like you said, supply chain and IT needs to work together. To me, that's like delivery experience. Delivery experience is as important as customer experience, what the customer is doing on the front end. He's on the website maybe for an hour, but after he has bought, he is transacting with you for the next maybe 1 day, 2 day, or 5-6 days. And what experience are you delivering to that customer is super critical, right? A lot of it is in the background. You see the customer coming, purchasing, and you see that, and you're auditing those metrics. But I think giving a world-class post-checkout experience, call it the delivery experience, is super critical. And I think, I completely agree with whatever we have.
So how does it typically happen when you have a conversation with a brand?
Right.
Let's assume they're not here.
Right.
Okay? And let's assume that none of your brands are here.
Correct.
But when you have a conversation with them, are they really strategic in the way they talk to you? Do they talk at the level of saying, okay, customer experience, or is it A से B move करना है, कितने में दोगे बताओ, या कैसा देगा बताओ?
Yeah, I think it's been a journey, right? And for us in the organization and even the conversations we have been having with the brands, right? It starts off with you have to move the product from A to B, right? That's how you'll start, right? And you just need to get it shipped. And then you start getting deeper into, can I move it faster? Can I tell the customer when it is going to get delivered, right? Like, and all the other things, right? Predictability, speed, a post-order engagement starts becoming important. And we have seen that for the brands we work with, as they are growing and as they are scaling, they do realize, because the repeats, right? We had, like Paras talking about from Leaf, right? You get the customer, but you want him to come back again. And in the initial stage, when you are just acquiring customers, focusing on acquiring the customer and ensuring it is getting delivered. And as you get into the analytics of, is he coming back? Why is he not coming back? What was my delivery experience? Okay, it was here. What is marketplace is offering? It's this. How do I bridge it? And I think consciously, at least, we see it happening in conversations when we're talking to the brands. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for the ecosystem, I think.
Sure. I mean, that's good to hear. And we will come to the point wherein we'll talk about as to what could be made better. But before we get to that, the last 20 months has been phenomenally, altering, right? Manoj, from your perspective, in terms of the changes that you've seen, there have been quite a few changes that would have happened, but not all of them are going to endure, right? There'll be some parts of it which will continue for the next 2, 3, or 5 years. So which are those elements of the change that you've seen which will be there in the next, let's say, 2 years? I think 5 years is a long time frame these days. Even 2 years is sacrilege, but we'll give it a shot.
Change is basically, customer experience is first. So, like what Andy said, so supply chain was previously also that when you start any business, supply chain was there, but now it's been seen more. Like previously it was going only to the stores, now it's going to the end customer. So, changes, if you see, the customer expectations have increased now. Like, it's nice to be very transparent to customers, saying that if you're going to deliver in 2 days, 3 days, or within a day, it's better to be transparent. If it's not getting delivered, you should inform them in advance. So even it helps you to, the customer is also delighted and they're happy that the brand is also concerned for them. And that helps. If your customer is happy, your business is going to come back. So that's where I see it.
Anil, your thoughts on this?
Okay, so the 18 months, 20 months which we speak about, there has been a lot of changes. Some were planned changes, some were unplanned changes, some just came by the way kind of thing. What would move out now would be all the unplanned changes, so-called in our languages, bandages, which we have so far done, right? What will stay would be transparency. The expectations is going to increase. So this is not where it stays, right? So can you be one step ahead of the customer? That's a dream come true, but something that's what we try to achieve, because now the organizations internally have started looking like one. It is not more silos, because this pandemic has taught us can't be silos, right? That digital experience which we carry right now have to be taken to the next level. Now, how do you take it up? Obviously by cutting out the edges and making it more finer for the customer, but also making sure that you bring a feature which is unique for yourself, your customer. And by doing this 18 months activity, what you have gained is a lot of attributes of a customer has increased. In the sense, previously if I had 10 attributes of Siju, now I have 128 attributes of Siju. Now how do I make sense of it and bring in that second layer on top of it to make it more lucrative for Siju to be coming back to us? That will stay for sure, and that is a journey going ahead also. So data, if I have to pin it up into one, data which we have gained so far will stay, and the nurturing of that will be continuously being there.
And which kind of aligns to what the gentleman earlier from Leaf was talking about, the importance of data. But I think it's much more than the volume of data, it's about the fidelity of data. And that's where a lot of retailers, not just Indian retailers, but globally, fidelity of data has always been suspect. So Guru, if someone goes onto CaratLane.com and orders, let's say, a pair of earrings, in how many days do you deliver?
So it actually depends on the type of product it is. For example, a platinum product takes much longer time.
No, give me an example. Give me a timeline.
So roughly anywhere from 3 to 12 days.
Sorry?
So 3 to 12 days.
3 to 12 days.
Yeah, it depends on various factors. we create actually clusters amongst the pin code, where the product is. Because we have a dynamic network, we actually fulfill from various showrooms also. So the product is not sitting in a particular warehouse. The product could be in one of the retail showrooms, and an order gets placed on any of the online medium. The product gets blocked from that digital showroom from selling to a customer, physical customer, or walking in over there. So similar to that, there are various conditions that comes into play here to get the product out of the door.
So, 3 to 12 days is a 10-day window. How many in the audience will agree to a 10-day window for a delivery of a product that they would want? 5-day window? 2-day window? Razor sharp 1 day?
Usually we do it on a single day shipment. In fact, a matter of few hours also, if the product lies in that particular location, if we are able to commit to that. So in a lot of times we have fast delivery, express delivery, and committed deliveries. All of that happens for a particular region if we know that a lot of products lie over there. But otherwise, we give a range, and usually for a jewelry that is made to order, people are willing to wait because these are not products made out of machines. So these are hand created, and it just so happens it's possible.
So I understand there are a lot of variables involved in this, but Atul, as a provider of the solution that can probably bring down the focus, how can you help him?
Am I audible? Yeah. So I think, for us, the journey started off by a 3 to 5 or 7 day promise, and then we quickly realized, basis feedback, that customers wanted to be more precise and looking at the experiences they have in marketplaces, right? And hence look at it, somewhere at the back end, the supply chain knows when the product is going to get delivered, right? There are SLAs, there is enough data, enough shipments moving from point A to point B, and that's how the marketplaces are predicting and giving a specific promise. Now you bring in technology and you look at it as a delivery experience problem and not a supply chain problem. You can very well show the promise on the product detail page, which is fundamentally what, say in ShipRocket, we are building for, that I know which courier partner, this pin code to this pin code, is going to deliver in how many days, what is the tag, or what is the SLA for when it can be picked up from your location, equivalent, etc. And hence on the product detail page, I can give you a very specific promise. Now, that's one part of the problem.
So how does that happen? We just plonk your software in the back end and everything works out?
Yeah. So basically, if you're using ShipRocket APIs for logistics, right? I can capture the pin code of the customer as well as the location of where the inventory of the particular product is. And I know the SLAs of different courier partners of what it is going to take. And hence, I can tell the customer on your website that you can order in these many minutes and it will get delivered in 3 days. And this is the cutoff, right? Because fundamentally, what we're trying to do is you have that information, right? But how are you leveraging technology to bring it upstream, making it a part of delivery experience?
So, most of us, I guess, we come from an era where, global view of inventory was supposed to be a huge thing. Right? I mean, we belong to an era wherein if you started a presentation by saying, hey, you know what, my solution will give you a global view of inventory, that used to be a huge thing, but now it's all passé, right? I mean, it's something which needs to be there. Which is where, Ranjan, someone wants to order a dress from Veramoda, probably because, 5 days later there's an occasion. What kind of a window are you providing for her?
Is it working? Yeah, sorry. So there are multiple ways that we can do it. One is we have to see and there are multiple services as well that we are trying to build. There will be a set of customers who might need it in a few hours, and they are ready to pay the upcharge because that is expensive. Delivering in a few hours is an expensive value proposition, but if there is a customer who wants it in few hours and is ready to pay that upcharge because they need it today or maybe tomorrow morning, we are building those services for them. If at all we have a store in that vicinity. So Omnichannel is making that available. Dark stores is making that available. Our chain of stores with partners is what we are also, because we are moving into, we're expanding into the tier 2 and tier 3 cities with a lot of franchisee channels, which is also making it much more possible. But what is important is now we are not leveraging or dependent upon a few distribution centers alone, which used to be the case earlier. And that is what is making it much more possible for us to be able to deliver it in few hours, a few days, and the customer will have the choice to be able to make when and how they want it to be delivered. Because there are a few customers who might be absolutely okay to get it in 7 days. And then it might not be the best thing for me to deliver it to him from a Select City Walk store, or a Palladium store, which could be the most expensive thing for me to deliver from that store. Versus there could be a customer who is ready to pay an upcharge and want it in few hours because he has to attend to a party in the evening, and they want that dress by the evening itself. And then I will make it happen from whichever store possible, because I have that network available with me, and that entire inventory view, a single view of that inventory is available.
Just to add, right, like, and I think it's again, and I see it as a manifestation of delivery experience. In the past, I was focused on shipping the product from point A to point B. Now I'm thinking of, oh, there are 3 ways I can ship it, right? Is there a seamless way for me to showcase to the customer? There are 3. You can get it in 2 hours, it comes at this price. You can get it in 2 days, it comes at this price. Or you can get it in 5 days, which is free. And you're actually giving the choice to the customer. You had the infra at the back end always. You're just leveraging technology at scale to be able to bring it as an element of customer experience. I call it delivery experience. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Sachin from Arvind. Is that the camera which is broadcasting on Zoom? No, where do I look so that he feels as if I'm looking towards him? This one.
I can see you, Suji. I can see you very much.
Okay, wonderful. So you've heard the panel out here talking about how supply chain impacts customer experience. And we got into a rather rough terrain of a 10-day delivery window, which people felt wasn't quite the right thing to do. But you, from Arvind, how do you ensure, or please take us through in terms of what does it take from the time a person places the order to the time he or she gets the particular product in whatever time you've promised?
Sure. So I think, just at the outset, right, at Arvind Fashions, we have expanded our marketplace and specifically B2C, channel share volumes from what it was typically in, single digits to about 35-37%, when we reported our results last quarter. So that's a significant shift in revenue, by the marketplace channels, including our own, OmniNow.com. And I think there are 2-3 fundamental elements to what really makes this work, right? I think the first and most important one is the inventory discoverability, where you from the past paradigm, where typically you have a very localized pin code view of a particular order basis which you decide on the serviceability, or you decide on the seller who's best actually suited to actually service your product. Now we have gone to a slightly more I would say a deeper view in terms of can I actually get that particular pin code serviced through an alternate store, okay, for instance, by doing a quick inter-store transfer to ensure that I don't lose the customer because that particular inventory was not discovered in that particular store with the pin code, but I could actually use my agile supply chain practices in terms of how we are configured in our ERP system, so on and so forth, and then bring the inventory quickly to a point where it can do the last mile, right? So I think this problem of identifying the closest last mile location itself is a very interesting problem and a challenge to deal with, not just from an inventory discoverability perspective, but also from a pure milk route heuristic standpoint in terms of how do you really get it quickly, right? So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is we need to ensure some amount of consistency in terms of the various channels that our customers experience our product, right? And there is definitely an element of seasons in our industry So giving that, that online for online experience through the supply chain, irrespective of, which marketplace you look at, and also being, having a view of, what is the closest, catalog that they could compare it with, from an offline perspective, is actually a very important driver for driving, some of the online for online or the SMU category of sales, that we've been able to pick through on the marketplace, right? So that's the second aspect. The third and the most important aspect is enabling our, employees and retail associates at the store to drive some of these actions in a more frictionless and an effective way, because these have been skills that they've probably picked up, over the last 20 months or so, because these were not mainstream in terms of how the supply chain used to operate. So getting them up to speed on, on the systems, on the processes, is a very important task. And for a brand franchisee like ours, where we run about 850 plus stores, this is actually, a very, very healthy problem for us to deal with, right? So I would, of course, there are other aspects which the panel has already, alluded to in terms of returns management, making sure that you get the product available at the right store. If it was especially a return merchandise, which could be processed quickly and put back on sale. I think those are definitely very important aspects which will further improve our stock turns and efficiency of dealing with the customers.
Thank you so much, Satish. I think you've touched on a wide variety of topics, including the servicing of PIN codes, which is actually is a big challenge, right? I mean, which is an unseen challenge, which is an invisible challenge, not clearly visible to a consumer who is ordering, and of the reverse logistics. Reverse logistics will come to it. But time to get some action from the audience. How many of you order 5 times a month? You have a question? Okay, there's a question. A couple of questions here. Can someone please...
Yeah, hi. Question for the panel. Hi, Anil. My name is Radha Krishnan from Tata. Since morning, we have been hearing about a lot of people shedding tears on the efficiency of supply chain. I want to ask, how many of you have taken a paperless supply chain as an objective?
So Radha, thank you for this question.
Yeah.
Thanks for this question, Radha. So I think it's a very, very important subject to touch upon. And I remember from our association when we used to work together in Future Group, and we've taken this subject up very, very seriously. And in a very, very unsaid manner, this is being pushed drastically. At least we've been trying to push this in a very, very big way in terms of moving. And most of our distribution center processes actually run paperless today. We would hardly have papers except that for the invoices which needs to be generated, that needs to be sent out to partners. That as well we are in terms of looking in terms of how could we make it more and more digital, and we are trying to do pilots around that to make it more digital so that it eases the life and the processes from the process perspective. At the same time, it becomes much more environment friendly as well.
I think that's great, because Shiju, the important part is that when you want to make your supply chain paperless, you got to do many good things up the supply chain.
Absolutely.
Which makes your connectivity, your data management, and the sheer cost of paper itself. I heard one of the biggest retailers many years ago when I used to be with Reliance, he told me that raising one purchase order from one warehouse costs 190 Indian rupees.
Wow. So that's an interesting data point from Radha, and that question was pretty relevant in terms of how paperless are brands going, or I think ready to go, right? I mean, leave apart the statutory part of stuff for which you still need paper, but I guess the whole point that Radha was driving is if you're talking of supply chain efficiencies, it's incomplete without going paperless.
Just to add to that, Radha, rightly, and we've been working for some time, is the behavior. The organizational behavior has to change. It's not an IT person or someone else who can drive it, but it's an organizational behavior which should change, saying that, okay, I can do without this document. A scanned document is still okay. Because today also, in fact, some time back also, I was talking to a finance person, he said, no, I can't have a scanned copy. I need to have a paper copy. I told him, what is the relevance of it? A paper and a digital medium. You sign on a digital medium now. So that's an organizational change which you have to be driven from top or other way around, depending on the org culture.
Yeah, and I think it's high time that, we slammed organizational behavior change a little more aggressively. We were at a point in time where we were, meeting everyone physically, and overnight the ways of working and living changed. I mean, what can be a more drastic change than that? I mean, we've adopted to that and we've survived, right? So organizational change, I mean, it's good as a training topic, but I think that as a concept should, literally come down to zero, because if you've got to pivot, you've got to pivot now, right? We keep talking about digital first and physical first. I'm talking phygital first, right? There's nothing, you can't be digital first, or you cannot afford to be just physical first. You need to be phygital first, and which is a reality today, right? Thank you so much, Radha, sir. Yeah, you had a question.
I have two questions, both for Guru from CaratLane. The first is from the customer perspective. Because you sell a lot of premium products, it's expensive as a category. How do you convince customers to purchase things online? Because the risk of having delivery not happening at the last mile is high. So if I was buying something so expensive, I would probably consider going to the store and picking up instead of depending on someone else. That's from the customer's perspective. Second thing is from the company standpoint, how do you build that kind of trust on a delivery partner also when you're outsourcing? Because at the last mile, when a product is not getting delivered, or if the baggage gets lost in transit, the cost of the product being lost is much lower than the cost of a customer having a bad experience at the last mile. So how do you deal with both these experiences?
Thanks. It's been two interesting questions. So the first one, from a customer perspective, right? The trust is actually a journey. It starts from doing the business in the beginning, and then with the repeat rates and the brand, the Tanishq brand, all adds to the trust from a customer's perspective. But we have to show it in action. So what we have seen is, interestingly, a lot of customers browse online, the first place, and then they try to place a lower value order to begin with, and then they start moving up the chain. And as soon as they see physical stores around them, because we consciously have our sales team or the assisted sales team, marketing team, to nudge the customer towards a physical showroom, because we see that good conversion happens there, and customers' query also gets answered there, so the sales cycle becomes much lesser in that. So the marriage between this online and omni, the offline, the omni comes into picture there, and they do a lot of value-added transactions beyond that point. From that point on, they are very comfortable doing the transaction online. In fact, they pick up the phone and talk to the store manager directly, and the store manager starts interacting with the customer directly when a new collection gets launched and so on. Relationship starts building, and the sale happens very effectively from there. So from the delivery perspective, we do half our delivery through our own logistics management. And to our surprise, you'd see that at a high value product, there is a lot of cases of RTOs or fake deliveries, all of that happen. But we have not seen that. I think there is a lot of trust that is built into the system, with backed up by insurance and so on. After having delivered for the last 13 years, we are able to see that people don't take it for granted, and not a lot of pilferage or a fake happens in that particular space. But at the same time, we take it very seriously. We look at the metrics and ensure that the right metrics and right callouts are happening with the partners, delivery partners, and ensure that they are delivered very safely over there.
Thank you so much, Guru. Coming to you, Satish, you spoke about reverse logistics, right? So how attuned is Arvind as a brand to this whole concept of reverse logistics? And do you believe that you've reached a scale wherein customers are really happy with what you have to offer?
Yeah. So when we talk about reverse logistics or returns management, there are two aspects to it, right? One is the aspect of actually returning the merchandise back to the warehouse. It could be from the store or it could be from the marketplace. And the other aspect is to ensuring that from the warehouse back to making it centrally available for as a saleable inventory. across, the inventory pool, right? Both these aspects are equally important, and as a supply chain metric, it kind of impacts the stock turn significantly. Also, it impacts the availability and the experience of customers at store, where probably we needed certain cut sizes or certain colors, which were actually kind of not that deep in the assortment, which had to be kind of completed so that the assortment has the right depth and the right width. So reverse logistics happens and returns happens due to multiple reasons, right? So eventually, if I limit the scope of the discussion to a customer experience vis-a-vis returns management is concerned, we do have a very, I would say, a clearly laid out policy as a platinum seller and as a gold seller in most of the marketplaces as to what our returns policies are, and they are clearly articulated, and we support that with various facts and dimensions in terms of the sizes fit for various brands that we actually merchandise through online. So to that extent, prevention is also a great much more importance rather than reacting to a return situation. But come what may, if we've had to experience returns, I think one, from a customer experience perspective, obviously there is the aspect of refund, but from a supply chain availability, which eventually impacts our customer experience, it's also about making sure that those inventories are quickly be able to be processed and then moved into either the store shelf or into another bin where it can be allocated for an online sale, right? So this is a process which generally is very bespoke to any organization, and we don't typically depend on any standard monolithic products because there is a process which is very unique to us as an organization, and we want to kind of keep that as a differentiating tool. And this also enhances significantly how the customers actually perceives the brand. So we are in that journey. By no measure or yardstick, we have kind of achieved the level of excellence that we would want to, but definitely we are moving on the right path, and we are making significant digital additions to the whole business architecture around returns management.
Sure. And since we're running out of time, I'll just go back to the audience once again. And sorry, if it's a question, we'll just hold on to it. So who said that he or she has had a bad experience on the fulfillment part? You had. OK. Would you want to state what it is?
Hello. I ordered a cot for my newborn daughter at Amazon. And because it was a huge package, Amazon, they used to ship it from Bombay to Gurgaon. And I ordered it thrice, and it used to get shipped in a week's time. It used to stay in the Amazon warehouse for a week. And then they used to say that they cannot deliver it to my home just because they are not getting permits. But at the same time, the delivery boy would say that because it's a big package, I cannot deliver it because that would fill up my truck. So had to spend almost 2 months getting that cart out because that was only available on Amazon, and it just had to gift it on her first month birthday, and probably ended up gifting it on a third month birthday. So that was a bad experience that I had.
So leaving the principle aside, there's a problem. What's the solution?
So I think better upstream planning, right? Like I know what is planned to be shipped from point A to point B. And if I don't have the capacity, right, and it happens with undeliverable orders as well, if I don't have the capacity, don't give a customer promise if you can't deliver it.
No, but just to interrupt here, we're talking Amazon here.
Right.
Right? I mean, we're not talking just about any .com.
Right.
They're supposed to be setting benchmarks in deliveries. They're supposed to be setting benchmarks in customer service excellence. I'm sure they would have gotten the basics right? So what's gone wrong?
Let me say it this way. Even when I was in Amazon, there's a scope to improve, right? Like there are defects, and it's a very defect-focused organization. And I'm sure someone would have picked it up and understand where in the process it is broken. And intuitively, I can say the process was broken in the sense that when I'm giving a customer promise, I see I have connectivity from lane A to lane B, right? But have I accounted for the volume, the load, has the analytics of what it will require, what it will displace equivalent kicked in? or I have just looked at the basic A, B, yes, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, how I'll say it.
Good. Now, I've been indicated that we are running out of time. We'll just take a couple of minutes more. Just 2 more minutes. 1 minute, 55 seconds. Done.
I just
Great.
have one question.
So, this very clearly shows that there are things to improve. What are the 3 things that needs to be improved? Quickly, not long sentences, quickly. What are the 3 things in supply chain that need to improve? Very quick. These could be startup ideas as well, for all you know.
Transparency.
Transparency.
Predictability.
But we have transparency and predictability today, right? Or predictable predictability.
Predictable delivery, right? Like what we talked about.
Okay.
I need to know what's going to happen.
So if it's 10 days, say it
Tell
as
me
10 days.
right?
Don't make it, 5 days and then say, sorry, can't deliver. Yes.
I would say
For us, it's reverse logistic. The inventory which we get it from the customers should be converted into saleable inventory after QC. That's taking time. That has to be improved.
Okay, so that's a
Especially for
problem
the
that's,
logistic partners.
so that's a problem yet to be solved.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, we are
say
at the
just,
end of it, and
relevant,
we've kind of, you have one question? Sure.
The one thing that I would ask you guys to look at is that, deliveries cannot be done by brands, and the delivery partners cannot run brands. So we have to go hand in hand. So rather than being a service provider, it can be a brand extension and build your ethos around it, because a cookie cutter model for a delivery partner will not work for everyone. So you need to have very specific models, and you need to think yourself as brand extensions as opposed to being a service provider. And probably own that badge of that brand for whom you are delivering. That would actually make a lot of difference. And that it requires a mindset change. It requires a change in the way you run your business. But a cookie cutter model that one tries to build does not work.
And which brand do you represent?
I represent Chayos, so I have a problem of last mile delivery. I want to deliver chai in 20 minutes, but I cannot because I do not have a right partner. And we have been trying this.
So that's a startup idea for you guys. 20% proceeds to me. But we'll close it here, otherwise we'll all be chucked out in a very last mile way. So thank you so much for the patience and for listening to us. Thank you so much, folks on the panel here. And Satish, thanks for joining from
Thank you so
Bangalore.
much for having me virtually.
Thank you.